Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March 4th, 2019 meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Would you please join me as we salute our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Alderman Anderson.
Present.
Alderman Beatty.
Present.
Alderman Fortunati.
Here.
Alderman Gaynor. Here. Alderman Gurman.
Here.
Alderman Genentasio.
Here.
Alderman Golden.
Alderman Golden would like to be excused, Madam Secretary.
Alderman Grant.
Here.
Alderman Hardiman. Here. Alderman Smith. Here. Alderman Sutton. Here. Alderman Tranquilli. Here. Alderman Veccarelli. Here. Alderman Vitro.
Here.
Alderman Vitale. Here. 14.
We have 14 present. We do have a quorum. The next portion of the meeting is devoted for public comment. Statements are limited to the legislative function of the Board of Aldermen. The time limit granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anybody wishing to address the board can do so at this time.
Members of the Board of Aldermen, my name's Alan Brewster. I live at 115 Housatonic Drive here in Milford, and I'm the chair of the Milford Energy Advisory Board. The Milford Energy Advisory Board was created by the city to help us meet our pledge to reduce energy use in municipal buildings in Milford by 20% by 2018. We've developed a baseline of total energy use of the municipal buildings in 2011 and have kept this up to date continuously since then. We easily achieved the target of 20% reduction. In fact, we now have achieved more than 30% reduction in energy use, saving the city, we estimate, roughly $800,000 per year in savings. The city has installed energy management systems, replaced light bulbs, placed solar panels on cities and school buildings, but the greatest savings have come from simple behavioral change. Things like turning off lights and computers at night, turning down thermostats in the winter, turning them up in the summer to avoid unnecessary heating and cooling of buildings when they're not occupied. The Energy Advisory Board has also encouraged homeowners to install solar panels on their rooftops. Through 2 rounds of the Solarized Milford program, we have helped almost 100 families install photovoltaic cells on systems. But no family was required to use the program that we were offering. And by now, almost 800 households within the city have installed solar panels with corresponding savings to their electricity bills. Now the Energy Advisory Board has been authorized by the mayor to see what we can do on a voluntary basis to encourage businesses and homeowners to adopt energy efficiency and/or renewable energy uses that can save them money. To this end, we'll be hosting at the library an event on Saturday, March 23rd from 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon to show homeowners and business owners how they can save money through energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy. I have copies of the poster we have been using to attract people to attend the event, which you are all welcome to attend as well. And I hope that many of you will be able to come. I have copies of the poster, which are available to all of you if you would like them. So I can just give them to the secretary. glad to answer any questions that the Board of Aldermen may have. If there are none, then thank you very much.
Would anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Seeing none, Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 3, consideration of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on February 4th, 2019.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 4, there was no special meeting. Agenda item number 5, Chairman's Report. I just want to remind everyone, this Saturday is our 29th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think I'm going to turn it over to Alderman Marty Hardeman. Mr. St. Patrick himself, give you a little rundown of what the events of the day is going to be, Saturday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Saturday is our 29th year putting on the parade in this state. We have become the second largest parade in the state. Never will I want to play against New Haven, which is the first. The parade steps off at 1 o'clock. Streets will be closed no later than 1:45. You won't be able to get down South Broad or West Main or a couple of the other streets. They're shutting it all down. So if you want to get down here, you get down here early, and it'll be good. This is the largest parade I've put on this year so far. So it's bound to be a real good time. And I'm inviting all the aldermen to come down and march, show some pride. And anyone else that wants to come down and march, show some pride. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hardeman. The weather sounds like it's going to be in our favor, at least. We don't have to...
Well, I spoke with the devil himself, and he promised me good weather.
Mayor's report and recommendations. There is none. So we'll open under Rule 7, unfinished business. There is none. There is no unfinished business. And agenda item number 8, new business. From the mayor's report, items number 8A, Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item 8A.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request for the appointment of Sandra Cohen, 65 Beechwood Ave, as an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Review to fill vacancy, position term to expire 12/31/21.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is, he's not here, okay. So we won't have to have him come forward. Open on the agenda item number 10, budget memo transfers, Alderman Vecchiarelli.
I move to approve the consideration of the budget memo transfers, number 7, and number 8, Fund 10, FY19. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, agenda item number 11, refunds.
I move to approve consideration of refunds in the amount of $324,057.67.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Alderman Anderson.
thank you, sir. Through you, I'd like to ask Mr. Iridisi about a couple of items that were included. First, I wondered, there's a very large item that concerns the Connecticut Post Mall. So let's start with that. Peter, if you can just provide some details relative to that refund, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Alderman Anderson. That large refund was related to a tax appeal settlement that reduced their assessment, and it was related to the 2016 grand list and resulted in the refund that you see on the list.
Are there any other tax appeals that are under consideration which will be coming up subsequently relative to the mall?
To my knowledge, none that I'm aware of, but I know that our city assessor may have a few more cases, if you will, on a smaller scale, and those occurred throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iridisi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any more discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 12, reports of standing committees. Alderman Frank Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this evening, the Ordinance Committee of the Milford Board of Aldermen met to consider an ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an energy services agreement for the purchase of electricity. This regards a fuel cell to be owned, operated, and installed by Bloom Energy at the Beaverbrook wastewater plant. This particular ordinance was considered by the Ordinance Committee and unanimously recommended for referral to the full board here this evening. It also, by the way, was also unanimously recommended by the Finance Board on the 25th of February. So the ordinance authorizing this, I would like to propose as a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Smith. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Frank Smith.
That's all we had, Mr. Chairman.
Just had the one.
We had the original ordinance, and then there was a revision to that ordinance. I'm not sure whether we have to approve that. I think what we approved and recommended to the full board was the ordinance as it was revised. So that was all of our business tonight. I know we have representatives here from Bloom Energy. If I know we've just voted on this, but if we could perhaps ask them to, they had a small do you have a presentation, gentlemen? If you wouldn't mind, maybe just give us a brief summary here, since it's a...
Good evening, John Carbone, Greenpoint Energy. We're the developing partners with Bloom, and Mr. Saley took you through the highlights, but we provided a little presentation. I'm not sure if all of you have one, a copy. But essentially, you know, what is being proposed is a 900 kW fuel cell at the Beaverbrook wastewater treatment facility. There's photos in the packet that shows it's a very clean application, as Mr. Saley represented. Essentially, there's 9 units. Back to back, there's 18, but essentially there's 9 quadrants of fuel cells. They are very clean units. They essentially convert natural gas to electricity with very low emissions. Compared to a natural gas generating facility, it's roughly 25 to 30% less carbon, NOx and SOx. So it's significant. The highlight of this initiative, which started back in 2015, 2016, is on page 4. The state of Connecticut was subsidizing renewable energy initiatives. And this project, on behalf of the city of Milford, secured an LREC, a low emissions REC, which equates to $4.4 million for this project. And that's significant. We just found out this past week that the state is no longer going to incentivize these types of projects or renewable projects beyond 2019. So this was very significant to be awarded the LREC grant credits. In addition to that, another key component of this project was the virtual net metering credits. Essentially, this project receives 800,000 in credits annually. And as Mr. Saley represented, essentially what it allows you to do is the fuel cell will be hosted at Beaverbrook, but it also allows you to offset 5 additional locations for power consumption. So the 7.5 million kWh that is going to be produced with the fuel cell will offset 5 other accounts, essentially zeroing it out, where you will buy power at a significantly lower rate compared to the grid rate. And another highlight of this project, you typically don't see a fixed power component. Typically these types of projects, whether it's a solar or a fuel cell, has an escalator component in it. You know, just factoring in the escalation costs over the term of the contract. This one was negotiated very tightly by your council and outside counsel to essentially offer the city a fixed rate of that 7 cents, which we haven't seen, and we've been involved in a number of these types of projects. With regards to the technology, the Bloom Energy technology, if you go through the latter slides that are provided in the packet, you'll see that they have a significant presence here in Connecticut. You know, the Home Depots have 14 locations that they're using this technology. You have the IKEA in New Haven. You have the Walmart stores. I think there's a half a dozen of them now. And you have probably 35 other publicly traded blue chip companies that have vetted this technology for themselves and for their locations. So it's significant. If there's any questions, I think we could, you know, certainly field and answer any of your questions.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By the way, I expected there might be more discussion, and we just kind of jumped to the vote. But, sir, you just highlighted some of the various sites where this fuel cell technology is employed, Home Depot and some of the others. What municipalities specifically, like this type of thing, public service or entities like wastewater plants or municipalities themselves in Connecticut does Bloom serve?
Well, the one that we brought, we tried to find a project that was comparable to this project, and the city of Hartford has a project. It's an 800 kW, a little bit smaller system that they did it was a grid play where it essentially supplies power to 4 locations. And it's, and Mr. Saley and one of his colleagues were able to visit the site, and we were able to show them around and get a firsthand look at the technology and how it's applied. So that's one municipal example. There's also a number of regional districts where they're applied in school locations and other municipal buildings. So there are several. And the nice thing is, another benefit, just to hit the highlights, you know, we talked about all the grant funding that has been applied to this project, which is pretty uncommon in most of these circumstances where you don't get both components of those grant benefits, the V&M credits and the LREC credits. So this is a unique project in that respect. In addition, as Mr. Saley pointed out, this is critical infrastructure for the city, Beaverbrook wastewater treatment plant, and now you have redundancy. You have a a power source that is essentially could take that whole plant off the grid and still have a power supply, which is unique. So those are just some of the highlights that I wanted to point out for you. The technology, there's a lot of photos, there's a lot of locations, a lot more than this. We kind of cut this back just for the sake of time. But if there's any other questions, we're happy to answer them.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just thought the chair of our ordinance committee would have brought Bloom up to go through this, but anyway, we're here at this point. In our committee, I think you heard some of the comments, and one of my comments was it's a 20-year project, and you have a penalty schedule, and I think Alderman Giannatasio had indicated, what if we don't meet that minimum, number one, what is that penalty? And what happens if we opt out year 3, 4, 5? So what is that penalty structure as it goes along from year 1 to year 20?
The penalty structure, I'm going to just assume, with the way this is structured, I don't see there being a problem that you're going to meet the loads relative to what the city's loads are. I think we're pretty conservative. But to address the opt-out provision, the schedule, there is a schedule in the contract that essentially has a dollar value for each year or month that the city choose to opt out, and that is based on the capital cost of the system. And that's how they derive, and then it kind of just, it scales down the longer the system runs.
From the total cost down to equaling out at the year 20?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to, is it John?
John, yes.
So the fuel that's fueling this is natural gas, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's no way to tap into the methane or the digesters to?
No.
I thought that was kind of the
No,
point
there's
of
not.
putting it near, the Beaver Brook.
Well, in both your plants, you do have a methane reclamation system where you do use the gas to heat some of the sludge. So it's very minimal. It's certainly not enough volume to run a fuel cell. But the city is doing a good job in utilizing that component as a byproduct, essentially, of the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Vecchiarelli.
Thank you. I was wondering, the 5 other areas where this fuel cell would also supply electricity, could you tell me what their locations would be?
Sure. The Housatonic wastewater treatment plant would be one. It's approximately 2.4 million kWh. There's 2 pumping stations, pumping station 1 and 2, total just slightly over 2 million kWh that it'll be offsetting. The PD, the Milford Police Department, that will be offset, and that's roughly 700,000 to 800,000 kWh annually that they've been using. And then Foran High School, which is roughly 2.4 million. And then the host, which is the 6th site, which is using about 1.2, 1.3 million annually. And as Mr. Saley represented, in the event the city does something different with those locations, you could interchange facilities and locations as necessary.
Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. Good evening, John.
Good evening.
So you represent Greenpoint,
Yes.
and what is your relation to Bloom exactly?
Well, Greenpoint, through an entity called PowerPoint Energy, has been working with the city for probably over 10 years on various energy initiatives. And back in 2015, 2016, the city was looking for some critical infrastructure redundancy. So what we did is we identified a potential opportunity for the city, and in 2016, we applied for various grants, those 2 grant programs that we were selected for. And we did feasibility studies on the application, and then what we do is we work with different technology partners that best suit the application. So we're not, partial to one technology. We bring the best technology to the forefront for the application.
Okay, that's,
And
I
Bloom
do
essentially-
recall, because I was on the board at that time. So
Right.
you represent the city, you were commissioned by the city to find efficiencies.
Correct.
So with that being said, Bloom Energy, how were we able to negotiate the digester into this program?
The digester that was a kind of a separate issue, but essentially there were maintenance issues relative to the state requirements that weren't being maintained. So the city was trying to figure out, hey, how do we get money set aside to address these issues? Because they have to be, there's a schedule that has to be met with, not PURA, with the EPA. And so long and short, we said we may be able to package up some additional benefits, such as addressing that issue with the digester over at Housatonic. And that's
Okay.
kind of how it came about, and the economics worked, where it's reflected in the tolling rate.
And I do recognize the cost savings across the board. So I guess in hindsight, it worked out. It was delayed in 2015 because the funding didn't
Correct.
come through, right?
Correct. Well, the LRECs were actually awarded in 2017, the LREC award. But then the state had budget issues, and they kept pushing out and delaying the V&M credit, virtual net metering credit. And we just received the award for the virtual net metering credit in September of 2018. So there was, over a year gap between when the LREC was awarded to the city and when the V&M credit was awarded. So,
Okay.
and that was due to budgetary issues. They were contemplating doing different things with the programs at the state level.
Okay, and so now we're able to move forward, because this digester just came up most recently, within the past year, I believe. So we were able to package this in, is that right?
Yeah,
Director
answer
Saley?
that, Chris.
So Alderman Gennatasio, so one of the things you brought up, how did this come into it? We asked, when we partner with any company, we're looking for benefits for the city. And part of the negotiations we had a need that we thought we had to have addressed. And part of it was with John, and they brought this program to us and said, hey, we can give you guys some money to fix the digester. So there's more, the tolling rate goes up incrementally for the 20 years, but it's lost in the savings, so.
Okay, the only reason why I want to bring that to light is I know that we just bonded for the digester.
Yes,
So,
and that number was anticipating, we were in the back of the line, we always anticipated this money coming in. It's almost like a contingency for the project, because we believe it could be 500, it could be 800, so we're right in that same line.
okay, well, that's good to know. I mean, I wasn't made aware of that at the time of bonding. I thought that the cost that we bonded, was the cost of the digester. I didn't know that there was a supplement, but I guess that's how it ended up.
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Giantassio, you also have to remember when the bond issuance for the digester, we were still negotiating this deal, which had yet to be approved. It's now approved, so hopefully, we can receive the monies as part of this deal, and that'll help offset the cost, which I know the $500,000 that was bonded is to go clean out the system and accurately diagnose what's going on. But I know that given the critical timing of fixing the digester, that I know I advise the mayor, get authority via a bond, and if we can get approval for this fuel cell project, that'll help offset that.
Okay, and John helped us through Greenpoint with that
Yes,
component?
Greenpoint has helped us on a lot of projects. One of them was the Parsons energy updates that we did over there. I think it was over 2.5 years ago. We put a management program in. So, yeah, we've worked, but John has also worked with the Board of Ed with some projects, too.
Okay, I just wanted to get a better understanding. I know that we already voted on this and it's been approved, but it sounds like, based on what John mentioned in your submission, that we're getting 7 cents, is that right? Cost, which is really kind of unheard of in the market?
Well, so when you understand, Alderman Gennatasio, that's the, and I use this as an example, the leasing for the equipment, we still have to purchase the gas, so it's more like 11.5 cents at the present time, which is still substantially less than what we would pay with the UI.
Okay, and John, you mentioned that there was two components as far as energy goes. It was the gas and what else? Or the,
Two grant initiatives?
yes, two
grant
grants.
initiatives, yes. But with regards to the tolling rate, as Chris mentioned, you know, it's a 7-cent tolling rate that the city will be paying for the power, but they also pay for the gas that runs the fuel cell, and that would bring it up to just over 11 cents. So the all-in cost to the city would be 11 cents. And if you look at, there's a slide that kind of, you know, shows you the comparison relative to the grid. So on slide number 5, this is an all-in cost. So essentially for the gas and electricity, if you look at the right where it says Bloom Energy on slide 5, if you look at the annual PPA cost, that's the $875,000. That's what the city would be paying for electricity and gas for what's produced from the fuel cell. If you look at the left scenario, that's if they stayed on the grid, they'd be paying close to $1 million, the $976. So it's significant. And then it, you know, it just kind of goes out over the term of the contract.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the
You're welcome.
explanation and your help with this, and hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any more questions for Mr. Carbone? Alderman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Ms. Carbone. You had mentioned the net metering grant. I assume that that's a deep grant, is that right?
Correct.
What account does that come out of?
It's the way it's handled as a credit. So essentially, it's the value of $800,000 annually.
I see.
That you could offset those 5 accounts.
Thanks very
the
much.
selected
And
5 accounts.
while you're here, you provided us with information at the time that we approved the microgrid. I'm wondering if you could just give us a brief update about the microgrid project. Or Chris, thank you.
Not to cut John off, but he wasn't involved with that project. That's Schneider Electric that's doing that. And so we're in the process of going out to bid for that equipment in the next month.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. See, I knew we had questions. Sometimes the alderman gets shy. It doesn't often happen, but perhaps we did such a good job in highlighting all these things during the ordinance committee meeting. Just one quick question, either for the director or Mr. Carbone. Why is Beaverbrook chosen? Housatonic is the, if I'm not mistaken, is the newest and largest and biggest consumer of kilowatts in this city. Why is the Beaverbrook a host location for this fuel cell?
At the time of the negotiations, we had 2 different opportunities. So we had Beaverbrook involved and we had Housatonic involved. I can't tell you why Housatonic wasn't picked, but it wasn't, but Beaverbrook was. So that was somewhere up at the state level, I believe, was the choice.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mr. Carbone.
Any more questions for Mr. Carbone? Thank you very much for your
Thank you, and good
presentation
night.
and answering all our questions for us. Thank you, Chris. Is there any more reports of any standing committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 13, reports of special committees. Are there any reports of special committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, executive session. I respectfully submit the following for your consideration and action. 14A, Matthew LaVecchia versus City of Milford, discussion concerning pending litigation. And 14B, consideration of settlement of Milprop Realty LLC versus City of Milford regarding 70 Bridgeport Avenue. 14C has been removed from the agenda this evening. So joining us in executive session for 14A will be the City Attorney John Bertram, Assistant City Attorney Deborah Kelly, and Fire Chief Ito. Joining us in executive session under 14B will be the Assessor Dan Thomas here tonight?
Yep.
Will be Assessor Dan Thomas and Attorney John Bertram. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're in executive session. Will the aldermen please take their seats? Thank you. We're out of executive session. Alderman Vecchiarelli. Agenda item 14A.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize settlement in the matter of Matthew LaVecchia versus the City of Milford in accordance with the recommendations of the city attorney as discussed in executive session.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Vecchiarelli, item 14B.
I make a motion to authorize settlement in the matter of Mill Property Realty LLC versus City of Milford in accordance with the recommendations of the city attorney and city assessor as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.